Hey guys, what's up? So, in this lesson, we will discuss the Administrative Reform Commission reports, the ARC recommendation, and this is presented by me, Roman Saini, your friend. So, let us get started. So, in this, we will have the overview, then we will see the first Administrative Reforms Commission reports. But the most important thing is second ARC, that is the second Administrative Reform Commission reports. ARC means Administrative Reform Commission. Then the implementation of recommendation. Then second ARC report, that is Administrative Reform Commission. So first report, preface, outline and recommendations. Then the 6th point is first report's conclusion. Then you have second ARCs, second report, preface, outline and recommendation. And finally we will deal with the second report's conclusion. So it is an interesting topic. Many of you want to study this but cannot study this because they are huge bulky volumes. So I thought I'll make a half an hour course on this. So this is the overview lesson. So let us get started now. So the first and the foremost thing, why is the need of ARC, by the way? Because India's administration is not perfect. Every administration needs reforms from time to time. And like any other administration, we need reforms in governance and administration here. And if I have to use the words of Kofi Annan, so good governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating poverty and promoting development. Again, I'll repeat, good governance is perhaps the single most important factor in eradicating the poverty, promoting the development, etc. So it is a huge thing, right? We should be able to eradicate poverty using good governance. So again, like every aspirant should question this, right? Why do you need reforms in the first place? We have everything in place. Why do we need reforms? Why do we need reforms, especially in governance and administration, which are very rule-bound things, and every law, every act, every rule is already there in place for bureaucracy or the politicians or whatever you want to call the governance structure. But the thing is, they are in the theory they are present, but in the practice you will find them amiss. So let us start with what is governance. So what do you mean by governance? Governance is basically exercise of economic, political, administrative authority so that they can manage a country's affairs at all the levels. Okay, the entire country's affairs have to be maintained at all levels. Now it consists of various mechanisms, processes, institutions through which the citizens and groups, they articulate their interests, very important, exercise their legal rights, so this is also important, meet their obligations and mediate their differences. Again, I'll repeat, they can articulate their interests, so basically what their interests are, what they want to get done, legal rights, for example, fundamental rights, right to property, etc., meet their obligations as a citizen, and they can mediate their differences, that this is something which you don't agree on. So without good governance, no amount of development schemes can bring in improvements in the quality of life of the citizens. So I think this point is pretty clear. And in that sense, poor governance will generate and reinforce poverty, and it will also subvert effort to reduce it. And that is why strengthening the governance is a very essential precondition to improve the lives of the citizens, development of the nation. So that is why we need to strengthen the governance at all cost. However, it can be articulated in the following ways. Yes, I understand. So that is why political downside is the first and most important point, that why we need these reforms. So state apparatus is generally, if you ask any citizen how is India's government, basically inefficient. So they are generally perceived to be largely inefficient, and with most of the functionaries they are serving no useful purpose at all, and the criminalization of politics is going on. So muscle and money, these are the two things which you need to crack any election. So they continues unchecked, and with money and muscle power playing a large role in elections, as I have already covered. Then there is a huge abuse of authority. Those people who are in power, they abuse their authority to get re-elected at all the levels, in all the organs of the state. It has become the bane, means curse of the democracy. And the imbalance in the exercise of power is at the heart of the crisis of governance, because the power is so imbalanced among the citizens and otherwise. So as a result, most agencies of government, they are functioning suboptimally, and government programs have not yielded the desired results whatsoever. So the structure of local governments, which was envisaged in the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, it is now in place, but the soul of self-governance and empowerment, that is largely missing by and large. So the structure is there, but the Panchayati Raj municipalities, that is not there in the practice. And there is a huge corruption, everybody knows about it. Pervasive corruption is the most disturbing element of our governance. However, in all the core sectors where the state's role is crucial, you will find that corruption is like everywhere. And second is inefficient bureaucracy. In general, if you ask, majority of the people will say bureaucracy is tardy, inefficient and unresponsive. And there is a growing concern our civil service and administration have become wooden, inflexible, self-perpetuating, inward-looking rather than outward-looking, past-looking rather than future-looking. And corruption is all pervasive everywhere, eating into the vital components of our system. It is also undermining the economic growth, distorting the competition, disproportionately hurting the poor and marginalized citizens. And at most levels, authority is basically divorced from the accountability. There is no accountability, and it is leading to a system of realistic and plausible alibis for non-performance, saying that this is not my responsibility. And most functionaries, therefore, they are called in a vicious cycle. So they are becoming hugely inefficient. Then in the wake of liberalization, privatization, globalization, the corruption forms are changing. Technological sophistication is being involved in economic offenses. So there is a need for a pan-Indian institutional framework for effective enforcement of criminal justice. And the focus should be on speed. So globalization is in an interconnected world. Is it inevitable? Obviously, it should not be at the cost of people. So legislative, executive and judiciary, they have to be strengthened further to meet the challenges of globalization and to be economically safe from global shocks. Then there is a social demand of these changes. So there is a high degree of volatility in the society. They want action, they want it now. They want accountability on unfulfilled expectation. They want accountability on poor delivery of services which is provided by the government. So public trust and confidence has been shaken completely, and we need to have independent inquiry, mandatory implementation of this so that public confidence and social cohesion is back. And there are unemployment and discrimination that is going on in the society like anything. And principles of equality of opportunity is being violated in this. So governance at all levels have to ensure orderly justice, peaceful resolution of conflicts in a complex and dynamic society. Then the aspirations of the youth is the fifth point. So the aspirations of the younger generations, which is uninhibited by past baggage and which is emerging from institutions of higher learning and frontier technologies, they have to be fulfilled basically as they become the torch bearers of the new century. So aspirations of the youth has to be fulfilled. So the major weakness in our governance is the incapacity to institutionalize best practices, and it is considered a weak link in the development. And what is needed is the will and painstaking effort for good governance and administration in India. So we have two ARCs so far, one in 1966, one in 2005, and in the next lesson we will cover these two administrative reform commissions. So thank you for watching this lesson. Hey guys, what's up? So in this course we are dealing with administrative reform commission's reports, ARC reports basically. They are very very fundamental to the governance, and they have taken the nubs or the pulse of the performance. And this is presented by me, Roman Saini. So we have covered the overview, why it is needed in the first place and how they are going to do it. And now in this particular lesson we will see the first administrative reform commission reports, we will see the second administrative reform commission reports, and we will also see the implementation of recommendation. So these are the topics which we are going to cover in this particular lesson. So let us get started. So first administrative reform commission, it was there in 1966, and it was set up as a commission of inquiry. Okay, so first administrative reforms commission was set up as a commission of inquiry, and it was set up by who? Ministry of Home Affairs in 1966, more than 50 years ago. What was the mandate of it? Mandate was to consider the need for ensuring the highest standards of efficiency and integrity in the public services, for making public administration a fit instrument for carrying out social and economic policies of the government, and achieving social and economic goals of development as one which is responsive to the people. So this is the mandate. And the first administrative reform commission was chaired by Morarji Desai, who later on became the Prime Minister of India in 1977, and later on by Hanuman Thaiya, and he became its chairman when Morarji Desai became the Deputy Prime Minister of India. So just remember these names. So the commission was required to address these 10 key areas. Like these 10 key areas you will find even after 50 years they are not addressed, by the way. So machinery of the government of India and its procedure or work. So it is still faulty. the machinery for planning at all levels. We had to completely disband the planning commission altogether, and we have Niti Aayog now. Then center state relationship still very in a bad state. Financial administration, personnel administration, economic administration, all these issues are still persisting. Administration at the state level, district administration. Then agriculture is obviously India's agricultural country, so it will find a special mention all the time. And the problems of redressal of citizen grievances. So these are the 10 key areas of the focus. So the commission submitted 20 reports in all before winding up in mid 1970s. So can you realize that it took 10 years in today's time. 10 साल में Facebook started and it is now having almost 2 billion users, 1/3 of the planets, almost you can say 30% of humanity is using Facebook, and in 10 years they could just submit these 20 reports. So you can realize the pace, right? Absolutely slow, useless pace. So first report is problems of redressal of citizen grievances, interim. Second report is machinery for planning. Third report is public sector undertaking. Fourth report talked about finance, account and audit. Fifth report talks about machinery for planning, and this is the final. Then sixth report talks about economic administration. You don't need to remember, just have a vague idea. Seventh report was machinery of GOI, its procedures of work. Eighth report was regarding life insurance administration. Ninth report was regarding central direct tax administration. 10th report was related to administration of UTs and NEFA. 11th report was related to personnel administration, then delegation of financial and administrative power, center-state relationship, state administration, small-scale sector, railways, treasuries, RBI, post and telegraph, scientific departments. So these 20 reports overall took around 10 years for the compilation, and they contained 537 major recommendations. And based on the inputs which were received from various administrative ministries, a report was prepared indicating implementation position, and it was placed before the parliament in November 77, 11 years after the formation. Then second ARC commission, it was in 2005, and it was set up after, let's say, 40 years of the previous one. And this time it was not Ministry of Home Affairs, it was Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievance and Pension, and it was again a commission of inquiry, and it was to prepare detailed blueprint for revamping the public administrative system in India. And the mandate was to achieve a proactive, responsive, accountable, sustainable, बहुत बढ़िया वर्ड यूज़ करते हैं, efficient administration for the country at all the levels of the government. Again, proactive, responsive, accountable, sustainable and efficient administration for the country at all levels of the government. Second ARC was initially set up under the chairmanship of Veerappa Moily, who resigned with effect from 1st April 2009, and he is succeeded by V. Ramchandran. And the commission was required to address the list of 13 key areas: organizational structure of Government of India, ethics in governance, refurbishing of personnel administration, strengthening of financial management system, steps to ensure effective administration at the state level. Can you see, again it is the same thing. Ethics in governance is useful for the paper 4. Steps to ensure effective district administration. Then you have local self-government, Panchayati Raj institutions, social capital trust and participatory service delivery. Then you have citizen-centric administration, promoting e-governance, issues of federal polity. Then you have crisis management, public order. So the thing is, citizen-centric administration is important, e-governance is very important, local self-government is very important, ethics in governance is very important. So these are the things which you should definitely focus on. And the commission was to exclude anything, the detailed examination of defense, railways, external affairs, security, intelligence, as well as center-state relations, judicial reforms, because these were already being examined by other bodies. So recommendation, the first report was right to information, master key to the good governance. It is important, okay, all these 15 reports, some are very important, especially the fourth report, ethics in governance, it is very important. Second report is unlocking the human capital, entitlements and governance. Third is crisis management, from despair to hope. Fifth is public order, justice for each. Sixth is local governance. Then seventh is capacity building for conflict resolution. Eighth is combating terrorism. Ninth is social capital. 10th is refurbishing a personnel administration. 11th is promoting e-governance, the smart way forward. 12th is citizen-centric administration. 13 is organizational structure of Government of India. 14th is strengthening financial management system. And 15th is state and district administration. So if you have to read just 3, I will say read this fourth report, ethics and governance, then read this promoting e-governance, and 11th and 12th. 4, 11th and 12th I will read. Now the implementation of recommendation. Now let us discuss the important thing. So the procedure which was prescribed for processing of the recommendation made by ARC is that the recommendations are first considered by the concerned administrative ministry or departments, and these views are then considered by the core group on administrative reforms, that is CGAR, which is headed by the cabinet secretary. Then they are placed before the group of ministers for its consideration, and the views and recommendations of the GOM are then submitted for the information or direction of the Prime Minister. So all of this is done and it is pretty clear. Then the government constituted a group of ministers on 30th March 2007. Okay, and under the chairmanship of External Affairs Minister to consider recommendation of second ARC and to review the pace of implementation in the ministries. Then core groups on administrative reform under the chairmanship has finished examination of all the 15 reports. So thank you for watching this lesson. Hey guys, what's up? So we are discussing the ARC recommendation, and this lesson is presented by me, Roman Saini. We have already covered the introduction and we have already covered the first Administrative Reform Commission reports, and in the last lesson also covered second Administrative Reform Commission reports, then the implementation of recommendations. Now we will deal with the second ARC's first report, preface, outline and recommendations. So that will be the topic of the discussion of this particular lesson. So let us get started. So ARC2, the first report. So Aristotle, who is considered as the father of biology, who is considered as father of zoology, who was basically a very influential figure in ancient Greek. So he said that if liberty and equality, as is thought by some, are chiefly to be found in democracy, they will be best attained when all persons alike share in the government to the utmost. What he's trying to say is that maximum people should participate in the governance and it should not be left to a few elite. So democracy, if you want liberty and equality, you need to pick your weight. So right to information, this is the master key to good governance. Everybody can have the information, everybody can know what government is thinking, what are they planning. So the commission in its first report decided to analyze and give recommendations on the freedom of information. As the Right to Information Act of 2005, it was enacted recently and it is a paradigm shift in the administration. So this is the first point which you need to understand. So the Official Secrets Act was there in 1923, and this is a very stupid act. It is a very retard act, and it was enacted by Britishers so that their slaves, that is us, cannot get much information from them. But unfortunately that continued still. Can you imagine, it was in the independent India also. So it was enacted during the colonial era and it governs all the matters of secrecy and confidentiality in the governance. And in India it was a convenient smokescreen to deny the members of the public access to information, and public functioning has traditionally been shrouded in secrecy. So this point is very, very important. You need to understand this point. Then the Right to Information Act of 2005, it is a path-breaking legislation. It means that some paradigm shift has taken. So from Official Secrets Act, because it was shrouded in secrecy, people cannot get any information whatsoever, how much money did they spend and so on and so forth. So that is why it is considered a path-breaking thing. And in last 12 years, our democracy has been progressed so much thanks to RTI Act. Now we have openness in the exercise of public power, whether it is executive, legislature or judiciary. It is a culture now. Okay, it is considered a norm rather than exception. Earlier, if you ask anything from government, they used to think, oh my god, what has happened? So it needs to be nurtured with privacy and confidentiality being an exception rather than the norm. So therefore the commission in its report, it has dealt with the application of the right to information in the executive, legislature and judiciary. So all these things are covered. Then outline of the first report. Now this is the agenda of the discussion of this particular lesson, so you can agree with this. So this report is basically in two parts. The part 1 focuses on official secrets and confidentiality issues, and it is divided into 3 chapters basically. Official secrets, rules and procedure, confidentiality, classification. So this is the part 1, and the part 2 focuses on the steps which are required for effective implementation of the act. It is divided into 4 chapters: rights and obligations, issues and implementation, application of the act to the legislature, judiciary and removal of difficulties. So these are the two parts. Okay, and recommendations which are made in the first report. So this includes the Official Secrets Act of 1923. So it says that it should be repealed and it should be substituted by a chapter in the National Security Act, and it should contain provisions relating to the official secrets. So official secret meant just that information which will affect the sovereignty, integrity of India, security of the state, friendly relations with the foreign states, economies, commercial, scientific and technological matters relating to national security, and it can include any secret code, password, sketch plan, model, article, note, document in relation to a prohibited place. That is fine. Even in RTI you cannot get the map of like India's LOC and where are all the deployed. No, you can't get that, because that will violate India's sovereignty and security and territorial integrity. That information is still beyond bounds. But using this official secret, even like ki how many cases have you handled, let's say a patwari can say it is a official secret, I can't reveal it. So that level of scrutiny is not needed, right? Then you have second as the oath of secrecy. So as an affirmation of the importance of transparency in the public affairs. So ministers, when they assume the office, they can take an oath of transparency along with the oath of office and the requirement of administrating the oath of secrecy. It should be dispensed with. Okay, so that is important. Article 75(4) and Article 164(3) and the third schedule, because it should be suitably amended, but this is not amended till date. They have to take this oath of secrecy. If nobody knows it, I'll just tell you. Then armed force should be absolutely excluded. Okay, and it should be included in the second schedule of the RTI Act, and the second schedule of the Act may be reviewed periodically. And all organizations which are listed in the second schedule, they have to appoint PIOs. Okay, and if you have appeal against PIOs, then it should lie with the Chief Information Commissioner. That is important. The Central Information Commissioner and State Information Commissioner respectively. Then communication of official information. So every government servant, when he is performing duties in good faith, will communicate to a member of public or any organization full and accurate information, and it has to be disclosed under RTI Act if they ask for it. Okay, so this is important. Then Central Information Commission. So section 12 of the RTI Act may be amended to constitute selection committee of the CIC with the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and Chief Justice, and section 55 can be similarly amended at state level. And Government of India should ensure the constitution of State Information Commission in all the states within the time limit. Similarly, the Central Information Commission should establish 4 regional offices of CIC with a commissioner heading each. And similarly, regional offices of State Information Commissioners should be established in larger states. And at least half of the members of the information commissions should be non-civil servants. They should be laymen, or they should be academic experts, or somebody like that. They should be from non-civil service background. Then designating information officers and appellate authorities. So all the public authorities, they may be advised by the Government of India that along with PIOs. Who are PIOs? PIOs are basically public information officers. They should also designate the appellate authority, and they should publish both of them together. So this is an important point. And finally, organizing information and record keeping. So public record offices should be established and all in the Government of India states within 6 months, and they have to integrate and restructure the multiple agencies which are currently involved in record keeping. And it will be a repository of technical and professional expertise in management of public records, and it will be responsible for supervision, monitoring, control, inspection of record keeping in all the public offices. Then you have National Coordination Committee. It can be set up under the chairmanship of CIC, with the nodal ministry being the nodal union ministry, SICs. And what it will do, it will serve as a national platform for effective implementation of RTI. It will document and disseminate best practices in India, monitor the creation and functioning of national portal for RTI, review the rules and executive orders, carry out impact evaluation whether it is functioning or not, and perform other relevant functions. So thank you for watching this lesson. Have an awesome day. Hi guys, what's up? So the second Administrative Reform Commission, we are dealing with the various reports of the commission, and we are at the first report, which is talking about RTI. Okay, so the first report, Preface, Outlines and Recommendation. So that is the first report. We are still continuing with it. So how we can implement RTI better, how we can go ahead with RTI implementation, etc. And in this lesson, we will conclude the first report of the RTI. and then we will focus on the second report in the next lesson. So let us get started. So we need to have a nodal department for RTI Act. What do you mean by this? So right now the Department of Personnel and Training is acting as a nodal department for implementation of RTI. And this should have a complete list of all the union ministries and departments which function as public authorities, because citizens can ask information from any ministry and every ministry should be able to provide that kind of information to the citizens. So at the Government of India level, Department of Personnel and Training is the nodal department and they should have the complete list. Okay, so this is an important point. Try to remember these things. See, these are written by government people and they are written by law ministers and all these people. So try to, you can't know more than them, at least at this stage, maybe later on. 10th is single window agency at district level. Whenever you hear this word single window, just assume passport. 10 years ago, you'll have to go to 10 different counters. You'll have to stand in 10 different lines. But now it is single window clearance. So a single window agency should be set up in each district. And this could be achieved by creating a cell in the district level office and designating an officer as Assistant Public Information Officer, APIO. Okay, so you have APIO, then you have PIO, then you have SIC, CIC, State Information Commissioner. There is a separate service, okay, Indian Information Services, and that you can get through cracking the civil service examination only. So just remember this point. And the lowest office in any organization which has the decision making power or is the custodian of record should be recognized as a public authority. So try to remember these points and it will really serve you a lot. Then applications to non-governmental bodies. So those organizations which perform functions of a public nature that are ordinarily performed by government or its agencies, and those which enjoy natural monopoly, they can be brought within the purview of this act. And any information which, if it were held by the government, it would be subject to disclosure under the law. So it must remain subject to such disclosure even if it is being transferred to a non-government body or institution. So just remember this point. So it basically says that if the functions are performed by government or its agencies, then it is applicable to non-government bodies as well. Okay. Then 12th point is time limit for information beyond 20 years. It's an interesting clause. Try to understand this. So the stipulation of making available 20-year-old records on request should be applicable only to those public records which has to be preserved for such a period. So this is an important point. And in respect of all the other records, the period of availability, it will be limited to the period for which they should be preserved under the record keeping procedures. So that is the 12th point which you need to understand. Then 13th point is basically redressal of public grievances. There will be a lot of public grievances obviously. So states may be advised to set up independent public grievance redressal authority to deal with the complaints of delay, harassment, corruption, etc. And these authorities should work in very, very close coordination with the state information commissions, district single window agencies, and it can help citizens use information as a tool to fight against corruption, misgovernance, or for better services. Then you have frivolous and vexatious requests. So obviously, like any system on this planet Earth, this system is also open to abuse, and it totally depends on the intention of the people, what they want out of the system. So it can be provided that information can be denied if the work which is involved in the processing the request would substantially or unreasonably divert the resources of the public body. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए everybody is involved in giving this information only and no work is being done. And the PIO may refuse a request for information if the request is frivolous or vexatious, and provided that such a refusal has to be communicated within 15 days of receipt of application with the prior approval of the appellate authority. So these things are must. Then 15th point is application of the act to the legislature, that is the lawmaking authority, and judiciary, that is the judges. So a system of indexing and cataloging of records of the legislature and which facilitate easy access should be put in place, and this can be best achieved by digitizing all the records, providing access to citizens for retrieving records based on intelligible research. Then a tracking mechanism need to be developed, okay, so that action can be taken by executive branch on reports of CAG, commissions of inquiry, house committees. Then working of the legislative committees should be thrown open to the public, and the presiding officer of the committee, if required in the interest of the state, may hold the proceedings in camera. Then the records at the district court and the subordinate courts should be stored in a scientific way by adopting uniform norms for indexing and cataloging. So this is also a very, very important point. The administrative processes in the district and in the subordinate courts, it should be computerized in a time-bound manner. So once it is computerized, it is very easy to access them. It is very easy to go through them. And these processes should be completely in the public domain as well. So what is the conclusion of this particular report? This is the first report. It deals with the Right to Information Act. This is the first report of the second ARC Commission. So most of the observations and recommendations of the Commission in this report will apply largely to the executive branch of the government. And the Commission has faith that most of the desirable reforms in administration will automatically follow. It's like if you run for 1 hour in the morning every day, then the risk for obesity will go down, diabetes will go down, cardiovascular disease will go down, stroke will go down. Similarly, you don't need to individually prevent these disorders. Here also in administration, you can just allow the information flow, and corruption and opaqueness and lack of accountability, more transparency, everything will be following in place if only the Information Act gets fully implemented. So this Right to Information Law of 2005 signals a radical shift in our governance culture and permanently impacts all the agencies of the state. That is why it is very, very important. So effective implementation of this law depends on 3 fundamental shifts. First is from the prevailing culture of secrecy to a new culture of openness, where information is shared with everyone. Then from personalized despotism to authority coupled with accountability. So you have authority, you have power, but you have accountability as well, because public can ask for the information. And from unilateral decision making to participative governance, where each and every individual is encouraged to take part in the governance. And the Commission also believes that Official Secrets Act is antiquated, unsuitable to the emerging needs, but it is recognized that RTI is necessary, but it is not sufficient to improve governance. A lot more need to be done: protection of whistleblowers, etc., decentralization of power. And obviously goes without saying that one single law cannot change everything, but this is a very important beginning. Just like an opening partnership in cricket is important, but it cannot ensure that you will win. So thank you for watching this lesson. I hope the first report of the second ARC Commission is done. Have an awesome day. Hey guys, what's up? So we are discussing various reports of second ARCs, and we have already covered the first report of the second ARC and we have already concluded it. And now we will see second ARC's second report, outline, recommendations and the conclusion. So second report is this, and this is a very famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi: the measure of a country's greatness should be based on how well it cares for its most vulnerable populations. So this is a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, that the measure of a country's greatness should be based on how well it cares for its most vulnerable population. So unlocking human capital, entitlements and governance, a case study. So Preface is basically NREGS Act of 2005. It is a path-breaking legislation, and in the past wage employment programs, they suffered for a variety of the reasons. So the unhappy result that even though a number of such schemes were taken up, but still you know that there was no result as such. Poor continued to be poor. They were caught in social captivity. They were not able to participate in the mainstream processes. But the nation was growing in a high income trajectory, but there was no trickle down effect. The bottom of the pyramid stayed poor. They stayed excluded from the benefits of the growth. And this is a very sorry state of affair. This is a very sad state of affair, that rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. The Commission has recommended comprehensive reform so that NREGA can be implemented seamlessly to benefit the poor. So first of all, they have to evolve appropriate administrative and financial management system, because that is the key success to NREGA. And the ARC attaches highest importance to these systems, because once they are tried and tested, lesson can be drawn and they can be replicated in other flagship programs as well, not just the NREGA. And Commission has specifically identified, analyzed the financial and administrative issues which are very critical to the implementation of NREGA. And these recommendations basically emanate from this analysis. And these recommendations, with suitable modification, they are also applicable to other national programs. So let us see these recommendations. So this is divided into 7 chapters: introduction, review of public employment programs, NREG implementation challenges, special programs of backward district. This is second report, issues and recommendation, conclusion, summary of recommendation. So let us see the recommendations made in second report. So guaranteeing the reach. So basically awareness generation program. Yes, it is awareness generation program. It should be taken up by all state governments. Publicity and guidance should be available in local language. And if we have to ensure proper coverage, voters list may be used for ascertaining number of eligible households. Household should be like used to define a nuclear family. So husband, wife and minor child, and they may include any person who is wholly or substantially dependent on head of family. Then guaranteeing the outcomes. So just guaranteeing that this scheme is there and money is going to spend does not mean anything. You have to guarantee the outcomes as well. So an evaluation should be carried out to assess the socio-economic impact of NREGA, and it should be comprising of the following activities. Identifying the parameters to be evaluated. This is the first point. Conducting the baseline survey. This is the second point. Third point is fixing the threshold levels for parameters to signal successful implementation of NREGA. Fourth point is to impact the evaluation. The impact evaluation basically means whether it is creating the enough impact or not, whether it is actually reaching to the poor marginal people or not, whether their standard is improving or not. So this outcome evaluation can be done as the part of expanded task of NSSO to develop district and sub-district data, etc. So this is important. Then ensuring convergence is important. So baseline performance indicator, it should be worked out like health, education, whether they are improving or not. Then rural development programs should be transferred to the Panchayati Raj institutions because they are in the best position to implement them. And there should be only one plan for an area, otherwise the chaos ensues, and all the sector scheme wise plans should be culled from this plan. Culled means basically removed. Then role of banks and post offices in fund flow is important. So open zero balance accounts, no frills account and post offices by both the individuals as well as institutions, and banks and post offices need to be reoriented to handle this particular task. Then fifth point is financial management system. So funds from the government of India should be transferred directly to the districts. Target levels of funds should be fixed for panchayats, that is village, block and district level, and the district should release funds to blocks to bring their funds up to the prescribed target levels. And finally the blocks should replenish the funds at the gram panchayats. So the system of releasing funds based on utilization certificates should be replaced with the system of concurrent monitoring and audit through an independent agency, and a uniform financial information flow system should be prescribed for the entire country. So that is a must. Then sixth point is preparing estimates for work time rate versus price rate versus piece rate. So payment should be made on the piece rate system and not the time rate system, and it should involve a more realistic rural schedule of rates for NREGA in each districts, so that both the men and women worker get the at least prescribed minimum wage utta to mile. Then the scheduled rates need to be made transparent, and it should clearly spell out the amounts required for the material as well as labor component in each item of the work. Then seventh is mechanism for procurement. So state government has to evolve transparent procurement process under the scheme, and they have to ensure that they are followed by the panchayats in a very transparent manner so that there is no scope of corruption. Then eighth point is strengthen the local government. So build institutions like DRDA, that is district rural development agencies, and they should be subsumed in district panchayats. Then capacity building. So there should be a provision to relax qualification in case of local candidates because they can implement it better, and it should be backed by training programs, capacity building programs, and services of NGOs with proven track records could also be used to supplement staff deficits. The ninth point is mode of payments to worker. So the ultimate mode should be left to the workers, whether they prefer cash or directly in the account. And in drought prone and remote areas, which are tribal and hilly areas, a part of the wages can be distributed in terms of food grains as well, because they will eventually buy food grains only. 10th point is selection and maintenance of work. So when the work is done, so the block and panchayat should ensure that the works of gram panchayat do not adversely affect the neighboring gram panchayat. Then 11th point is block resource center. So you have to augment the technical resources of panchayats at the village level. So you can set up a BRC. And entrepreneurship institutes for the rural poor. So entrepreneurship training institutes for the rural poor should be set up in every block so that they can be self-employed. So the conclusion is NREGA has obviously leads to paradigm shift. It makes employment a right, and people can expect, demand, and enforce it. So the first challenge is the aspects of entitlement universalization that calls for guaranteeing the reach and outcomes of the schemes. Second is about the issue of union funding execution by the state governments. Third is stems from a variety of constraints which arise out of the implementation of the scheme in backward districts where poor governance, low organization capacity is there. So it has basically recommended comprehensive institutional, administrative, financial reforms, and it can be used for other schemes as well. So I hope you like the first and the second report of the second ARC, and we will continue the discussion on important other remaining reports. So thank you.